All right. Hi, everyone. So my name is Natalie Eicher. I am the undergraduate advisor for the Department of Political Science. I'm the one that invited you all here today, and I'm going to have our co-hosts and presenters today introduce themselves. So Mackenzie, if you'd like to go first.
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Mackenzie Richardson, and I'm a UCDC peer advisor. I'm a recent graduate from UCSD, so I definitely feel how you all are feeling. I'm a first-year graduate student at GPS, so I'm still in school. And I did the UCDC program almost 2 years ago, which, wow, sounds weird saying, but it was back in winter of 2019, which I don't know if anyone remembers, but that was during the government shutdown. So definitely some fun memories with the UCDC program. And Jen wants to go next.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. I'm Jen Homrich. I am an internship counselor with the Academic Internship Program within the Teaching and Learning Commons, and I also coordinate the UCDC program for UC San Diego. So welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Cool.
So we'll just review this kind of the areas of focus here today is talking about your path to DC and the planning process, talking a little bit about how you earn major credit, and then the internship search process, and then finally applying to the UCDC program. We'll go over some basic logistics on eligibility and the application process.
Cool. So we're first going to kind of go over planning for UCDC.
So this is an overview of your path to DC would look like. You're here and you're planning for your participation in the UCDC program, so that's great. Next, you'll be preparing your application to apply to the UCDC program, and then you'll go through the selection process of securing an internship with DC-based organizations. Throughout the whole process, the UCDC team is here to help you apply to the program. That includes like reviewing some of your application materials, as well as search for internships and work with you on best ways to do that. When you're applying for internships, you'll be working with the UCDC team, like I mentioned, but you'll also have the opportunity to work with the UC Washington Center on your internship search as well, once you are selected to participate in the program.
All right, so as far as thinking about UCDC, you really want to think of these three questions. So as an advisor for political science, I know that a lot of students in our department want to participate in UCDC, and for good reason. Not only is it a great program, but it's really relevant to what a lot of you all want to do. And so the first question, thinking about what do you want to pursue? So, you know, thinking about the multiple opportunities that you have available, is UCDC the correct program for you? Because there are a lot. So there's study abroad, which is a little bit on pause right now because of COVID. But there's also the UC Center Sacramento program, which is similar to UCDC, but also different, a different place, different courses, different internships. You have research opportunities available to you, volunteering, you have on-campus and off-campus jobs, you have student involvement, and thinking about the department programs as well. So you really want to make sure that you understand what you want to pursue and how that fits into your plan. And then next is, when do you want to pursue it? So really being mindful of program deadlines, really working with myself as your major advisor, as well as your college advisor, and then of course with Jennifer and Mackenzie and their team on how you can plan for DC, because it does take some time to plan, apply, and then actually look for internships and make sure that the process is very seamless. So they'll explain a little bit more as we move on, but basically you really want to start solidifying UCDC in your plans at least a year in advance 2 quarters is still okay, but you still want to be mindful of those deadlines, because maybe if you also want to do, say, a department program like the Research Apprenticeship Program, so that's a winter and spring program in our department. But if you're saying that you want to do UCDC during the spring quarter at the same time, that may pose some issues. Now, with things being virtual, I don't know, it's a bit hit or miss, but you know, in non-COVID times that would not have been possible. So that's something to keep in mind. And again, you know, it's not just about your major, it's also your college requirements, even, you know, your minor requirements, if that's something you have as well. Some other barriers and restrictions you want to be mindful of is your academic level. So, you know, are you at a point in which UCDC is an option for you? Do you have the GPA that they're looking for? Do you have other responsibilities that you need to attend to while you're a student? So, you know, do you have a job that you can't really leave for, you know, 3 months at a time, if you do happen to go when the UCDC program is not virtual? You know, do you have family responsibilities that you need to be mindful of and plan for? Then of course, you know, cost is another thing. So how are you going to plan for that? Are you going to apply for some scholarships? Are you going to be working extra hours at your job to, you know, to utilize that time and the money for the program? Or, you know, is this something in which you'll take out loans? So again, lots of planning, but the more time you have to do so, the better. And then of course, the last question, why do you want to pursue the UCDC program? So really thinking about if this fits into your goals, what are you getting out of it in terms of your academics and the internship that you have? Really thinking about how this also fits in with your career goals too. So is this something that is going to help you, or is this something that maybe, you know, is something to consider, but not particularly necessary? Again, it's really also what you put into it too. I hear from so many students saying what a great program this is for them. And those are the students that really took the time to make sure that they really thought about what this program meant to them, what they were getting out of it, and how they are going to use that in the future for their goals. Next slide, please. And now one of the most important things is how UCDC counts towards your major. So for those of you who are political science majors, which should be all of you, but if you happen to share this with your friends, no worries. This is important for them as well. So as far as the required courses for the program, you have a research seminar course, and we have listed on the screen the options. So for those of you who are political science majors, you would enroll in Poly 194. And so this course you would take for a letter grade, and it would count towards your upper division elective category in your political science major. Now, for those of you who are double majors, and perhaps it may be political science with communications or USP or sociology or history, or maybe another major, this would be a good point in time to really look at your academic plan and see perhaps if that other major would be willing to have you take this course and apply it to their major requirements. Because maybe you've already fulfilled your political science requirements by the time you go to DC. So again, this is something in which you really want to plan ahead for. The next required course is the internship seminar course. So this is AIP 197 DC. So you have the option to enroll in this course for 6 units, 8 units, or 10 units. The number of units you enroll in is tied to the number of hours that you commit to your internship. And this is something that Jennifer or Mackenzie can explain a little bit further in like a one-on-one session with you. And then we have an optional course. So we say this is optional in the sense that it is really optional. You don't have to take it if you don't want to. However, it is required if you are only enrolled in 10 units with the courses above. So that would be a situation in which, say, you are enrolled in Poly 194, which is 4 units, and then the 6-unit option for the internship seminar course. So that adds up to 10 units. Because you are needing to be at least a full-time student while you are participating in UCDC. So this elective course, there are a few course options that you can choose from. They do have this on the UCDC website, so that is helpful. Most of them are political science-based courses, but every so often there is an option that isn't. So if you choose to enroll in this course and you want it to count towards your political science major requirements, then please check with me through the Virtual Advising Center just to verify that the elective course you've chosen is political science based, because I'll be able to confirm that with you. I think there has only been one that I've seen that isn't, and it has to do with museums, but pretty much everything else is valid. But again, please double check with me.
All right, so the next section we're going to transition into is going to be about looking for internships. And I'm also going to go over the pros and cons of remote internships for those of you who are thinking about applying for the upcoming spring quarter and want to know kind of what's the difference. One thing to note before we get started is that you do not have to secure an internship before you apply for UCDC, but we do absolutely recommend starting your internship search early, because there are some internships where the deadline application or the deadline for the application actually closes before the UCDC application deadline does. So that's why I just want everyone to be aware. And I always recommend, like, if you have spare time, just logging on to some of these resources I'm about to give you and just seeing what's out there. All right, so first, I want everyone to start thinking about what your areas of interest are. And it's super important that you think about this before you get started on your internship search, because you really want this internship to be fulfilling for you. And it doesn't necessarily mean in a career sense, but just truly in a passion interest sense. So if you already have some interests that you know, and you know that about yourself, that's awesome. And if you don't have something specific in mind, that's totally okay. I would kind of want everyone to start thinking about your time at UCSD or even high school and think, what are some of your favorite classes that you've taken? Was there a paper or a project that you really enjoyed? Was there a cool club you were a part of that you really enjoyed your time there? Anything that stands out as something that made you happy and felt fulfilling is a potential interest for you, and something to start thinking about in the context of internships. And beyond what you've already done, you can also start reaching out to professors that you've really enjoyed their class, or you just really like who they are as a person, maybe some family members or friends who are doing some cool things and you want to learn more about, or even your current supervisors at work. And maybe start asking them, what are you currently working on? What's your current job? What have you done in the past? And just really take note of the things that catch your eye, catch your interest, and ask more questions about it, because as you're searching for internships, you can keep that in the back of your mind and say, oh, I remember so-and-so talking about something like this, so this could be a cool opportunity for me. Asking around can really expand your knowledge base of the types of opportunities out there that you might not have been aware of before. I know for a fact when I was applying to UCDC and applying for internships, I was asking everybody I knew about what they were doing, because I just switched to becoming a poli-sci major and I really had no clue beyond like legislation what you could do in DC. So once you've settled on some topics that have piqued your interest, you can start your internship search related to these. And specifically, we have UCDC staff especially once you're admitted to the program, we have specialized staff who are currently in DC who can connect you to more of these opportunities. But also, you know, we have our UCDC team here on campus that you can always make an appointment with, and we can help talk through some of these opportunities and maybe guide you towards some resources that you haven't thought of before. So moving on, in the same ballpark, these are some important questions to ask yourself. You know, again, how soon should you start to apply to internships? We normally make our application deadline 2 quarters in advance of that quarter that you're going to DC. So for example, our spring 2021 application deadline is going to end December 7th. So that should give you a couple months time to start your internship search. And that way you can start applying for internships after you've been admitted to UCDC. But as I've said before, we always recommend that you start at least searching for internships maybe before you apply for UCDC, potentially even applying if it is for more competitive positions, or especially if it's something that you just really want, it's always good to submit your application early. And if you just happen to get an internship offer before you apply for UCDC, you can absolutely say that in your application. So moving on, how many internships should you apply to? It really depends on the quarter you're going to. Our general rule of thumb is 20 to 30, which I know sounds like a lot, but DC internships can be really competitive. For winter, it's a little bit of a lower number. You can get away with maybe like 15 to 20 because it is a bit of a awkward time in DC. You know, you're not really competing with a lot of the summer internship students, and you know, not as many people want to go to winter or DC in the winter. I was one of those people who went in the winter and definitely had a little bit of an easier time applying. And then lastly, summer, if you do want to go do UCDC for the summer, we recommend over 30 internship applications because those are it's a very competitive time in DC. And again, you know, with COVID and remote internships, I really have no idea at this point. That is kind of uncharted territory. I mean, I just recommend applying to as many remote internship positions as you feel comfortable with, because it's even been sometimes difficult to even find those remote internships, but we're going to get to that a little bit later. So can you have a paid internship? Absolutely. We absolutely recommend it if you can. There are tons of unpaid internships, but there are paid internships out there. Sometimes you just have to look a little bit harder for them. Also, make sure that you're able to have a paid internship with no issues, either for some kind of like financial aid, like red tape, or if you have anything with a visa, just double, triple check that it's all good for you to have a paid position. And on that note, when you're searching for internships, do look at the qualifications and make sure that if you are an international student, that you're not applying to a position that is US citizen only. So where can you begin looking for internships? Again, we'll get to this slightly later, but there is a ton of resources out there. We have them all on our website. Suggestions are glassdoor.com, Indeed, internships.com, which is run by Chegg, USA Jobs, if you want to go into US government internships. So on our website, you can see all of these different databases, especially some databases also from like UCLA and things like that, that they've already compiled something a little bit different. And then of course, all the search engines. And so last question, I get this a lot as a peer advisor. You know, I don't have relevant experience. How is that going to impact my internship search? Absolutely focus on transferable skills from other jobs, positions you've had in clubs or volunteering, or even your classes that you've taken. You know, this is an internship. People are expecting to teach you the things that are really specific that you need to know. And usually what they're looking for is just a couple of skills that you already have. Some of these can be analytical writing, communication skills, maybe just general office skills, such as experience with like Microsoft Word and Excel. So don't worry if your experience isn't matching perfectly what the qualifications are. Take it more as a suggestion. And if you're having trouble please absolutely come to us. And we at the UCDC team are trained to help you work through your resume and really help you like apply to these positions. And so lastly, the internship start and end dates. So DC East Coast is a semester based area. So sometimes you will see start and end dates that do not line up with the UCDC program. That is okay. Most of these organizations are familiar with quarter students. And so as long as you state in your internship application, whether that be your cover letter or maybe some kind of sheet that you have to fill out, the precise dates that you're doing UCDC, or if you're applying before you get into the DC program, you know, maybe just generally put when you think you can work, or email us and ask us when those dates are, which we usually have posted on our website anyway. As long as you can put that in your application, you'll be good to go. All right, so moving on to internship resources. So I know when I started looking at internships for UCDC, I felt very overwhelmed. I didn't know where to start with topics, and I didn't really know the differences in organizations. So here are just some things you can chew on for after, you know, we've gone through this whole presentation as you move forward thinking about UCDC. So these are some general internship topics that you can look up to learn more about. We have a lot of these topics on our website as well with kind of corresponding internships linked to them. And as you're going through this, you know, think about what are the things that are jumping out. Is it the environment? Is it public policy? Is it more health-based topics? And that these can become search words, keywords that you type into internship websites or job search websites. The awesome thing about UCDC is that you get to actually pick your own internship. We don't pick it for you. So it gives you a lot of leeway and a lot of freedom to truly apply to things that are super exciting and interesting to you. Because UCDC is an awesome way to explore a career field that you've always wondered about, or you want to try something totally different that you've never done before, and just see how you feel about it. For example, when I did UCDC, I was a media intern at a think tank, specifically the Woodrow Wilson International Center for Scholars, and I had no media experience whatsoever. I had just switched to being a poli-sci major, and I had been a bio major before that. So I really had no clue, you know, what I was doing, but it was such an awesome experience because it gave me exposure to how DC media works, you know, media outlets, as well as like what happens when someone goes on air. And it also gave me insight into how think tanks work and how that whole kind of academic side of DC operates. So it was this really cool kind of two-pronged experience that I never even would have thought about doing. And that was just, I learned about the Wilson Center from talking to a family friend, and I looked them up and then, you know, went through the whole list of internship opportunities, and like media intern was at the very bottom, and it had an open it was like a rolling application deadline. So I was like, okay, I'll apply. And that's how that happened. So moving on to organization examples, you know, think tanks is on this list. I think the ones that people think of the most often with UCDC is obviously like Capitol Hill, maybe even like White House interns, which that is absolutely an internship program you can do. If you're thinking about applying to be a White House intern or working for the CIA or the FBI, you can do that. Just they close their internship deadlines like 8 months in advance. So definitely keep a close eye on that and look that up early. And then the rest on here are like US federal departments, nonprofits, law firms. If you're thinking about going to law school, news media, so that could be like NBC News or AP or even like NPR and things like that. It doesn't necessarily have to be like camera news. It could also be like a newspaper. And then private business, because there are a lot of private organizations. A quick note on nonprofits, when I was crunching the numbers, looking at the past 4 years of cohorts from UCDC and looking at like what kinds of internships everyone was doing, I found that a lot of students, like almost half of them, interned at some kind of nonprofit, which makes a lot of sense because a lot of nonprofits are headquartered in DC and they offer really incredible hands-on experiences. Most of them are unpaid internships, just a heads up. But there's a lot of like really famous nonprofit organizations that are in DC, like the Human Rights Campaign and the Middle East Initiative. So on our website, if you go to past internships, this is what will come up. You can actually look at by quarter and by year what organizations that our UCDC interns have been at, and also like what major they are. So this might also help you get some ideas of where you could start interning. And as you can see just from this past fall, that our students have worked at a lot of really diverse organizations with diverse interests, diverse types, whether it's nonprofit or a law firm or whatever. So it's like very inspiring, and I really recommend, just perusing the website and seeing, what's out there. But if you really aren't sure where to start, that's all good. I made a BuzzFeed style quiz to kind of help you get started with at least like the different types of internship organizations, because I thought that would have been really helpful for me when I was looking for internships. So you can follow this link and it will take you to this like, what kind of internship organization would you fit into quiz? And you're just like selecting like multiple choice answers. And at the very end, it will pull you to this your top results screen where you can actually click on the more details part of every organization type. And it will tell you not only a description of that type of organization, so like, for example, explaining what marketing and communications internships entail, but also giving you some examples of UCDC interns that have done an internship of that type. So for example, like for the think tank internships, my Wilson Media position's on there, but also for the media relations internships, my Wilson Media internship is on there. So I hope that that's helpful for anyone who just needs a little bit of help getting started. Okay, the question that I'm sure many of you have, what's going to be the difference between a remote and an in-person internship? So we know that the fate of future UCDC quarters is kind of up in the air due to COVID. We know for certain that spring 2021 is going to still be remote. We're not sure about fall yet. Jen will be able to talk about summer a little bit later. So for those of you who are ready to jump on it and submit your spring 2021 application, as well as anyone who maybe is going to do a remote internship later, I want to go through some of the benefits, the pros and cons to doing this. So the first one is you don't have to actually move to DC, which can be really great, because then you can start searching, for internships in Maryland, internships in Virginia. You can kind of go in the general area since you're not going to have to commute, and you don't need to be close to the UCDC building. I definitely knew interns when I did UCDC that were having to commute like 45 minutes via metro, because they had like an internship that was almost out of town. It was just like at the outskirts of town. So that can be a really big pro. And obviously you can do a UCDC internship from your own home, which is really cool. Another important pro is that you can extend your internship because you're doing it remotely. You don't have to go home necessarily. So that can allow you to gain more knowledge of the organization you're working at, and maybe have better relations with people because you're there longer, which could lead to better networking. Then the other one is, you're growing your skills because doing all this online work is going to have like a slightly different skill set than maybe an in-person office. So that could be a really good thing. That could give you some really unique life and career skills for later on. Another one is that you could intern more than once. So the virtual internships allow you to intern during fall, spring, maybe even summer, because they don't require you to relocate. That kind of also goes with the last longer. You could extend your internship, no problem, because you're not having to relocate to DC. This also gives you kind of some leeway to try new things. I definitely knew when I was applying to UCDC internships for DC, I was like, oh, I really have to like make this count because it's my one like DC internship. But the pressure kind of gets taken off when you're just able to do it remotely. And you're able maybe to have a little bit more wiggle room because you have more time, and you can maybe try a new interest that you maybe wouldn't try normally. And then Lastly, there's still like a lot of more minute benefits. So your schedule might be more flexible. You can truly intern from anywhere. So that might be helpful if you're still trying to, maybe you're living at home or you're trying to figure out whether or not to come back to UCSD for the winter, and you're not sure where you're going to be next summer. That could be a really big benefit. Avoiding traveling and commuting, travel costs are something that you do have to pay yourself. We'll get to this later with the cost of UCDC, but there are a lot of costs for the UCDC program that can maybe seem a little bit daunting. For example, like paying your own airline ticket, paying your own commuting costs, that kind of goes away with the remote internship. And again, like there's a lot of ways you can save money by just staying at home. And then most importantly, the remote internship is still going to look just as good as an in-person internship on your resume, because at the end of the day, you're interning at a DC organization and you get to put that location as Washington, DC, which absolutely stands out on a resume. But obviously doing a remote internship has some drawbacks compared to the in-person experience. Again, I just really want to emphasize that doing a remote internship is not any less valuable than an in-person experience. Something we always say about DC is that DC runs on young people. The whole country is dealing with the COVID crisis, and we're all going to have to deal with coming out of this crisis together. And DC organizations need young people and fresh ideas and new ways of doing things more than ever in order to, survive and come out of this well. So I highly encourage everyone to think of this as a unique opportunity presented to them that not only looks great on their resume, sorry, that was my mail that got delivered, but can also change your life course, maybe your career course, because the job experience you gain from a DC internship is life-changing no matter what. But that being said, the drawbacks is that you are going to miss out on living in the city of Washington, DC, and having that fast-paced office environment. And maybe some of this online work isn't the work that you would normally want to be doing for your specific field or industry. Another thing is that 3-hour time difference really sucks sometimes. 8 a.m. in California is going to be 11 o'clock in the morning in DC. So that could get a little bit frustrating, maybe with trying to figure out your work schedule. Also, you might not have access to certain office resources. So for example, like maybe you need a specific computer program and it's difficult to download and get that running, versus like you might have that already preset on an office computer, like at that location. And then of course, with the time difference and being online, maybe you might not be able to meet up with your internship supervisors or your colleagues in order to get a hold of them for work or even just to do some connection. But again, I just gave you all a really big spiel on why doing a remote internship can still be a really big opportunity, especially because, we don't know what the future holds. And so I always recommend trying to jump on opportunities as they come, and maybe not always waiting around, but this is a UCDC planning session. So I just want this to be information that everyone keeps in mind. All right, and I'm going to pass this over to Jen next to talk about the UCDC application and its details.
Great, thank you so much, Natalie and Mackenzie. That information was very helpful. So I'm going to dive into the application and eligibility details. I'm not going to go into too much detail because we do have information sessions that we're holding. In fact, there's one tomorrow that we do dive a little bit deeper into them, but I will do a general overview for you all. I do want to start off by letting you all know that the 2021 academic year through this fall through spring of 2021 is a remote program. For summer and the following academic year, there hasn't been a decision made yet, but all of this information will still apply. Most of this information will all still apply to both a remote program and a residential program. Next slide, thanks. So the UCDC program is open to all majors, as there's thousands of organizations that Mackenzie had mentioned that you can take part in while you're in DC. To be eligible for the program, these are the requirements that should be met. However, there are some exceptions that can be made. So I'll give you a few examples. Sometimes students need the 90 units at the time of application, but if you're close, if you're like 75 to 89 units, this isn't going to disqualify you from applying to the program. Another example is a GPA requirement. The program does prefer that you have a minimum 2.5 GPA, but maybe you had a rough first year, or you realized that the major you were in was not for you and you decided to switch majors at the last minute, but your GPA was impacted by the previous major. That's just something that you're going to be explaining to us in your letter of intent or meeting with me personally, and we can talk about that as well. When reviewing applications, we do look at the whole student. So if you have any concerns about these requirements, please feel free to reach out to me. We don't want some of these items to feel like a barrier for you. So Natalie and Mackenzie mentioned how and who you can contact to help you think about and plan for an experiential learning opportunity like the UCDC program. I mentioned that we look at the whole student so each material that we request that you submit, we really do take into consideration when making our selections. When and what you want to apply to is important to think about, as Mackenzie and Natalie mentioned. It's important that you know a little bit about what you want to pursue prior to filling out the application to any program, including the UCDC program. Many applications will want you to explain what, when, and why you want to pursue that specific opportunity. For example, for the UCDC application, we do ask that you have thought a little bit about what you want to pursue, and you're going to add that to the basic Google form application and part of it probably to your cover letter when you submit that to us. We ask for this information in part because organizations that you're applying to will also ask for something very similar, and we want students to be prepared with their application materials so they can apply for organizations as soon as they can. Letters of recommendation are also something you want to begin considering as you're thinking about applying to programs. During this remote environment for UCDC, we do realize asking for letters of recommendation may be more difficult for you. So we are definitely being flexible on those number of letters that you need to submit to us for your UCDC application. These letters can be from faculty, former employers, current employers, anyone that can really speak on your behalf of the work that you do. So during the academic year, students are full-time and enrolled for a minimum of 12 units for the UCDC program. You will take the AIP 197 DC for your internship. Like Natalie mentioned, the units do depend on the amount of hours you are interning. This course is pass, no pass only and won't be counted back to your poli-sci major. The other course you'll enroll in is your research seminar, which is the Poly 194 course, and this course can be taken for pass, no pass, or letter grade. If it is a political science-based course, then poli-sci students can use it for their upper division elective category in their major. During the summer program, there is no academic component tied to the UCDC program. So if you want to earn credit for an internship that you're pursuing for the summer, as part of the UCDC program, we can talk about how you can do that one-on-one. So definitely make an appointment with me if you want to talk a little bit more about the summer program. So program cost for the 2020-2021 academic year, so this fall, winter, or spring, remote programs you're only required to pay what you would normally pay for your classes. So university tuition and fees that you're currently paying for a regular quarter on campus. Since you are considered a UCSD student during your participation in the UCDC program, financial aid will still apply. And all accepted student participants are submitted to the financial aid office. But students do need to meet with financial aid officers one-on-one if they have any questions specific to their own financial aid package. For the residential program, University tuition fees are also the same as regular quarter on campus. However, we do estimate a budget of living in DC, and we submit that to the financial aid office, and they sometimes will make adjustments to the student's financial aid package based on the living expenses, because they usually are higher in DC. You'll also have not just your personal living expenses, but you'll also have your residential fee of living in the UC Washington Center, which changes yearly, usually year to year or quarter to quarter. So you can find an estimated cost for the UCDC program on our website. Some good news, we were recently notified that the UC Office of the President will offer a fellowship for the Spring 2021 remote program. We're still waiting on more details of this fellowship, but that is something that students who are selected to participate in the Spring 2021 term will have the opportunity to apply for that fellowship. AIP also has a need-based scholarship opportunity for those that qualify, as well as political science majors might have an opportunity for a scholarship as well, but it does depend on donations that are available for that specific quarter. So that's not necessarily a guarantee. So to learn a little bit more about the logistics of the UCDC program, including the summer UCDC program, we do have that info session tomorrow, November 18th. I believe, Mackenzie, that it is at 1 o'clock. Okay, 1 o'clock. And the link to register is located on the slide. And it's also found on our homepage of the UCDC UC San Diego page. We'll cover general tips for submitting. Also for the next one, the spring application review will be Thursday, December 3rd. So if you are interested in applying for the Spring 2021 program and you want us to review your application materials for the program, we can definitely do that during that spring application review. Usually it's the application for spring is due the Monday, December 7th. And so this application review is right before the weekend. So you will have a weekend to work on it after you review them with us. And that link will also be found on our website to register. And again, these are some of our upcoming UCDC deadlines: Spring 2021, December 7th, and Summer 2021 will be January 15th. So you do have a lot to consider over the next few weeks to see if you are interested in participating for this academic year. And this is all of our contact information. We do have drop-in hours on Tuesdays, 1:30 to 3 o'clock, where you can speak with a peer advisor about UCDC. You can make a one-on-one appointment with either a peer advisor or myself. And if you have any questions regarding your academics for poli-sci major, you can always reach out to Natalie via the VAC. And so now I think we're going to open it up for questions. Does anyone have any questions?